Welcome to a Well-Designed Home podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Brunk, Principal Interior Designer at Timeless Designs by Melissa. We are a premier, full-service interior design studio serving Sioux Falls, South Dakota, the Iowa Great Lakes, Mankato, and Rochester, Minnesota. Our mission is to create enduring, bespoke homes that celebrate a life well lived. With over 20 years of industry experience, we craft personal havens where every detail reflects the essence of your family, evoking feelings of joy, belonging, and pure delight. Join us as we transform the building and remodeling industry, one home at a time, because there's no place like your home. Welcome to the podcast today. We are chatting with Jon and Erica Williams from Undercover Systems of the Heartland. We're going to talk about all of things deck sealing and maybe some other things. So let's get started. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start off. Who are you and what do you guys do?
Jon Williams. We kind of got into a role where we were looking at specializing and specializing in waterproofing the underside of your deck. So that's kind of the role that we're chasing in that outdoor living that's coming to Sioux Falls pretty rapidly. So, yeah.
I'm Erica Williams. I'm Jon's wife. I was a nurse for 15 years, actually, until 2021 when I finally started working with him. He got busy enough in the remodeling world is where he started. When we moved back to Sioux Falls from Colorado in 2020, and he just needed a second set of hands. So I volunteered.
And here you are.
Yeah. So here we are. And we actually did remodeling for about a full year before we found this product. And people just repeatedly, when we were in their home, kept asking for us to do something with that space, that patio space that's underneath their deck, whether it be waterproofing it or putting some sort of ceiling on it just so it looked better. But he looked for about 6 months. And actually found this product out of Atlanta, and they've been making it since 1996. And it's a heavy gauge steel product that actually does not attach to the underside of the deck. It attaches to the structural perimeter of the deck. And so basically becomes a drop ceiling. And so there's slope to it. All the water drains away. There's an air pocket for airflow. And we just thought, why do we not have this here?
Right. So many decks are just the deck boards. And there's no usable space in rainy weather or
So we went down to Atlanta to meet with the gentleman and kind of still convince him to have his dealership up here. You go to any development or any place and you look down the back line of decks and it's just, you don't see a single unfinished space underneath that area. I mean, everywhere.
It was very eye-opening because
they're all finished.
The opposite here. It's very unusual to have that space finished or covered because it's just A, I think it's unknown, and B, it's not really a known used space. Like people don't really think of that space as a functional extension of their home.
Right.
But when you waterproof it, you certainly can.
Right. Well, and like the summers here are very, very short. And so really you just get to use it for a couple of months out of the year. And if you can extend that living space, that's huge.
Yeah, it's the cheapest way to add additional dry square footage to your home outside of doing an addition. It's cheaper than doing an addition. So then you can extend it into the spring season because if it's raining, you're obviously not going to want to be in that space. But if you have a waterproof ceiling over your head, you can certainly sit out there and still have coffee or watch the game or do whatever you want to do yoga. You know, it can be a space of whatever you're wanting it to be. It has unlimited potential. Even in the winter, we have clients who they'll put a ceiling on and then they put heaters under there. And we have people having little like cocktail parties out there in December,
so awesome.
Which blows my mind, but is super fun for us to hear that they're really extending
such
that
a mild winter this year. We had people using it all the way through Christmas. I mean, it was just, and you don't have to take the patio covers off and store them somewhere and make sure who put them back on or who forgot to put them on and now everything's wet. I mean, it's basically you take them off, you leave them off. Keep the space clean up above. Even when weather does, you don't have to remember who didn't cover this or who didn't do that. So it's just kind of a lot easier when the space is already ready to go. And then to use it when you just have that thought of like, let's go outside because it's a beautiful evening versus like, what's the preparation to have that space ready? You know, if you had to hand uncover your pool every day, you probably wouldn't go out and use the pool,
That's
because who's
very
going to
true.
can't uncover that? But when you can just flick a switch and it uncovers itself, you're going to just run out, jump and use it, and then run back inside. So
Mhm.
one of those things where I think just the fact that it just keeps that space to an area of just easy access to it.
Very convenient.
Yeah, it just makes it very easy to have those spontaneous, let's just go use this
Cocktail
space. Yeah,
parties.
let's just go use this, or let's
Yeah.
eat out there, let's go sit. And that's kind of what we've been hearing from a lot of the clients. A lot of it was just, let's cover it up because we don't like the look of it, and that's just our goal. It's just, it doesn't look very good now that you point it out, because most of the time they really didn't look at the structure until they started looking at theirs and looking at the pictures of finished, and then they kind of
It
gets in
is
their
quite a
head.
drastic difference
It is.
from the unfinished, just the
Mhm.
structural bottom pieces, and then having it finished. It's really quite stunning.
Yeah. I mean, you really feel like you're in a room inside. Like it truly, and especially if people, I mean, again, sky's the limit with the space once it has a waterproof ceiling. We have people do screens, they build walls. I mean, you can enclose it. There's just so many options to do with the space once you've got it waterproof, because now you don't have to worry about water intrusion, and then you're adding screens for bug protection, and even the screens a little bit for wind in the winter. Like it just, and then you add the heaters, and again, it's just kind of a snowball effect, and it becomes this really gratifying space that you already had. So it's not like you're adding it; you already had this space.
More usable
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably my phone.
You see, that doesn't sound like one of mine.
So, how did you come across this product? Were you looking for it? How did you find Atlanta?
That was a
Page
long
11 of Google
yeah.
at 11:30 at night. He wakes me up.
Yeah, that was a long process, because
hey.
that's
Yeah, he's like, you got to look at this. That's amazing.
we had, even when we were in Colorado, we had a lot of requests for that space, and then Sioux Falls, it turning into a lot of people that own hot tubs that, they'd open the hot tub, all the heat
Sure.
rises up, they scoop all the snow they want, but it's still in the cracks, it still drips down, and it still is a mess. So it's kind of one of those things where everything is kind of thought of these days. Someone thought of something these days, so it's just a matter of finding it. And stuff that was available to us at the time just never, I mean, if it didn't look good in their website, it probably didn't look good in person. It's just
Very
one of those
true.
things where
Yeah.
it's the opposite. When you're looking at a home, the pictures, you got to go see it in person, because pictures can be deceiving. But when it just looked off in the pictures, it was like, it's got to be. And if that's on their front page, I'm hoping that was the best of the best. So if that's it, so it was kind of like, someone has to be smarter than me. This can't be the first time of looking like, there's
Someone
got to
wants a
be
deck
something. Yeah,
ceiling.
there's got to
Yeah.
be something. And yeah, it was probably took 6 months of
Looked
just
for a long time.
constantly searching, trying to get further and further out there in just all these different areas. And then this company popped up, and it looked great online. All their dealerships looked great. Had a finished look without knowing it was a waterproof ceiling. And I think that's the ones that have a house gutter really threw us off, especially just kind of with that. We want that finished, seamless look. And so
Don't want you to feel like you're outside.
Mm-hmm.
Like we just really, truly wanted an extension of your home, and everything that we were coming across was tin, aluminum, vinyl. And it either didn't last very long, it doesn't last very long in our climate, just with our fluctuations in
Sure.
hot and cold with our seasons, or it didn't look that great once it was up. And we really like to give clients products that have longevity and
Yeah.
that we feel good about. And when we sell you something or install something for you, I want it to last, and I want you to love it, and I want it to look fantastic
One and
in
done.
30 years as it
Mhm.
does the day we put it in. And so this was just, we
And
couldn't believe it that
yeah.
it was
and
a
then,
heavy gauge steel. And
then the contractor mind throws in, and then it was serviceable. That was the biggest thing, where like, let's say we put up the ceiling and the homeowner gets hold of me, a different product gets hold of me and wants to do something. They want to add a gas line for a fireplace up top. And it's kind of like, I'm not touching what I just put in, because it's a disaster to pull it apart without damaging
the other products.
all of it. Then,
So then you'd have to
It's
replace
just-
like the whole ceiling if you
or
wanted
have
to
that
do-
conversation of like, I can try to pull this apart, but you might have to replace quite a bit or X amount, but I can't give you that until we tear it apart. And then that kind of kills the product of like, you put it in and it's a one and done. This one acts like a drop ceiling. I mean, I don't have to have any tools. I don't have to have any special, I can teach the homeowner how to do it, and it basically acts like a drop ceiling, so you can access all that stuff. Service anything, you can pull it down completely. Service, clean the deck underside.
Mm.
Visual inspection, if someone wants to sells a house and wants to do a home inspection, We can easily, we're definitely, that's kind of one of the things where that really stood out too, is
I
where,
never thought about that, but that makes a lot of sense for home inspection.
yep. So that's kind of where it was like, we just didn't, in a home we like to have where, let's say the tile showers above the kitchen sink. Well, that's a horrible place to have a leak, but how do you know it's leaking until it's leaking?
Right.
And then you have to deal with the aftermath. We kind of like the fact that you can keep an eye on things. You can have
Big on prevention.
Yeah, it's just that
Prevent the problem.
Right.
there's going to be a problem. You just have to be aware of it, and then how can we just ease the solution once the problem's there. So that's kind of the real drawn in part, the mindset of a contractor, where we really love the product. Not necessarily the homeowner's view of why they love the product. We love that it looks great and they love what it does for them. But on our end of it, the access and the serviceability after we leave is what we really enjoy about it. And that's what
really set it off in comparison to the other products. And like I said, if you're attaching something directly to the bottom of your deck to the joist, you're trapping water, and then there's water intrusion, there's debris that collects. And that's, again, why we didn't like any of these systems. And then they're hard to get out.
That's what all of the other systems were.
The majority of them all attached
these
in
other
some
materials, and then they go to the bottom joist.
Yep. Yep. Right to the bottom. And it's just, your deck needs to breathe. And so that's a big misconception with this too, is like, oh, you're trapping water, but we're nowhere near the deck joists. We're down below them. There's no water being held up against the joists. There's no debris collecting on there. They stay nice and dry, and the whole system slopes and dries out on its own just per design. So we just really fell in love with it and hope to do this full time now. So
it makes perfect sense. I mean, how many decks are out there?
Yeah, tons. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the biggest thing too, is there's some products you have to capture during the new build of the deck, but you really can't convince a 5-year-old deck owner to tear up all their boards to put down this waterproofing system, and then hopefully we can get them all back down without any damage. Kind of unrealistic on the labor side cost of things. So the fact that we can capture new decks, but existing decks we can really incorporate it without having it look like we was a secondary product and was kind of smashed together. And it usually at the end of everything we can get it pretty seamless on it was a thought process during the whole entire deal.
Really intentional.
Yep.
And that's really what design, especially with renovations and remodels, that's really what design is all about, is whatever you're doing, you want it to look like it's always been there, or it always meant to be that way, because otherwise if it sticks out like a sore thumb, then it's not well thought out or a good job done.
Yeah.
So for the technicalities part of it, how does that work for an existing deck?
It's super easy. I mean, we come in and we basically just put a 2x10 perimeter board of the client's choice. We usually start with brown treated, but we can do cedar, we can do composite, we can do engineered lumber. So we like to do the things that will last again. So we don't typically use green treated because the brown treated is kiln dried. So they can paint it, they can stain it right away. There's no wait time. And then it usually, since it's brown treated, looks nice right off the bat till they can do something with it. But we'll attach that perimeter board all the way around, including on the house side. So if you have siding, we'll usually take that siding off and go straight to the structure of the house. That way, if they ever change their siding, again, longevity, they can side right up to that board without having to worry about their siding underneath this, leaking behind that, things like that. So we install that perimeter board, and then we come in with our system, and we install the system after that.
Nice. And that can be done on, I know we were talking before about like multiple sections. So you can tie all of those pieces in with the deck board or the perimeter board, and then all of these pieces, and then the downspouts and everything, correct?
Yep. And each deck is unique, and each deck is custom fit and measured. Everything comes actually custom measured and cut for each individual deck from Atlanta, where we get the product. So once we come to your house and we do a site visit and we move forward, everything is measured to the T, exactly what's going to go on that specific deck. And then we have that all drawn up in a plan, and then that's how it all gets installed.
Nice. And how long does an install usually take?
About a week, typically, depending on the complexity. We know once you start talking accessories and things like that, because we can do lights and speakers and fans, that slows us down a little bit. It just takes a little bit more time because we're cutting holes in the panels, and then everything gets waterproofed and sealed up above. And so that takes a little bit more time, but on average, it takes about a week, a typical size deck. Obviously, the bigger and more complex they are, the longer they take. But
I love it. Okay, so what are goals that you have for this year?
oh gosh, do more ceilings.
Yeah. Too many.
Get people to know that we exist is one
Yeah.
thing, because outdoor living is just kind of starting here. I feel like we really have seen it take off a little bit more.
The pool industry is,
Yeah.
I mean, we've been in some neighborhoods where they have a pool and 3 homes around us are getting new pools. I mean, that's just one random time we were at their home putting the ceiling in. And, so I think that space, create a space where the family can play, stay, kind of always have a place to be entertained at. I think it's definitely growing. It definitely isn't like some communities where you fly over them and it's just blue dots everywhere you look, but it's definitely, I think, catching on where, I mean, just having that ability to have that entertainment space without leaving, without going anywhere, because everybody's so busy. I mean, it's just run, 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 run.
Right.
And so if we can just stay home and just relax and take a breath and have some of the entertainment to wear out the kids and to do some of that stuff, I think is
maximize relaxation.
definitely catching on. So I think, that's the biggest thing, is just like the awareness is, our goal is to just have that light bulb of like thinking of us when we think of those spaces, and that's been the hardest thing, is just to get that education.
We're an option.
Education
Yeah,
out
this
there.
product is here now.
Yep. And definitely why it's different. That's kind of the biggest thing. Again, contractor mind, where you're just kind of like, there's values on some of this stuff. Again, it looks great when it's all finished and said and done. But again, it's at longevity, because things just get, nowadays things are so expensive. I mean, it's just things get more and more expensive, but it seems like
You get less
the
and less
less
for the
and less.
expense.
Yes. And it's just like, it's like a one and done product. And it's just kind of like that. It just seems silly for these days, where it's just, I mean, serviceability, it should be able to last. We should be able to prolong the life, and it should be a product that should last if you want to have a generational home type of a deal. So that's, just awareness type of a deal is our kind of our big goal for this year.
Love it. What about color options? Is there just what can clients select from?
Oh, they have lots of choices now. We have 6 solid colors. So we've got a bright white, a soft white, tan, gray, bronze, and now we have black. So last summer was pretty big for us. So we got new colors. We got the soft white and the black, because black was really popular. We kept getting asked for black. So we did finally get that on board. But we also have 4 new 3D printed wood look colors, which just are stunning. But you get all the look and luxury of wood with 0 maintenance. I mean, you can power wash this stuff, you can brim it off, and you're not going to hurt it, but yet it looks like wood, but you don't have to do any of the maintenance. There's no staining, there's no sanding, there's no nothing. It's truly we put it up and you can forget about it if you want to.
Yeah. And smooth, and there's beadboard.
Yes. So we have 2 different, we'll call them finishes, textures. There's smooth, which is just, our panels are 16 inches wide, so you're going to have a 16-inch seam, but it's just a beautiful, smooth, colored ceiling. And the beadboard looks more like wainscoting, and gives it just a little bit more texture and hides the seams a little bit better. But we have yet to see somebody pick the wrong thing, just because it's so stunning. When you're done and it has totally transformed that space, nothing looks bad. I mean, the colors are all very complementary to any home. The wood tones only come in smooth. They don't come in the beadboard finish, just because they have the 3D printed planks already on them. So they kind of have that look already.
And the wood tone colors are which ones?
We have got walnut, which so far has been our most popular. It's the darker color. It's stunning. It's actually what's going to be at our home show booth. The walnut.
I'm so excited to see that.
Yeah, so are we.
Yep.
And we have hickory, which is a lighter color, a little bit more yellow undertone. And then we've got whitewash cedar, which is apparently very popular in the South. It's, I think, a little out there for here, but it's still really pretty. And then there's barnwood, which I think is going to do really well in some of these more cabin-y settings, or like the Black Hills, Minnesota cabins, things like that. Like it's just a really unique finish.
Yeah. So as clients are either building or planning a remodel of some sort, are there things that they need to think through or plan ahead for when they're looking at a product like this?
We try to get on that end of things, even with just if they're just doing a deck. But even on like remodels, we try to get things, whether they're blanks or something stubbed out to that deck fascia, so we can pull. Because again, all of a sudden we are using this space and now we have speakers. Well, now we want a TV, and now we want, we want heaters, but now we need we need a little larger voltage to run the heaters that we want. And so some of those things of just getting those things as our kind of our first priority. And then it comes down to the deck builder, home design, if they want to finish it out with screens, if they want to finish it out with, if we're doing solid wall style, kind of trying to get them to envision what's going on underneath and how we make it look the best. And that's kind of the biggest thing. We try to always say there's a lot of things we can do to make the system work great and flawless, but we can always adapt, whether we catch them at the right time, or maybe they miscommunicated and did something when they were doing that on site. Everything can be, we can usually adapt to anything, but we really like to get on board with, here's what we do, and here's how we incorporate it with the deck. So again, we really want that. We don't even want people to know that it's a normal deck. We want them to think it's a finished roof, must be a waterproof roof up on top, something weird, but it looks like a deck, acts like a deck, and just has that, where it's just, you don't even catch it, that it's a waterproof ceiling. And so it's really important to catch those things. But again, it's not the end of the world if something happens or changes during construction, that
we can just integrate it more seamlessly if we're on the front end of how that deck's going to be designed and built. Because then the perimeter board gets built with the deck versus put on as an afterthought, which we do all the time because there's tons of existing decks. And we don't catch too many brand new builds or remodels. Usually it's like, oh, hey, we found this after the deck was built, which again is fine. We integrate it really easily, but it's always
the pre-planning
is be part of pre-planning.
And even the deck builder will eventually see, if they see one in person, some of the things that get covered up, so they don't have to worry about usually what they try to make look good, because obviously it's all exposed underneath there. We normally cover up quite a bit of that. So sometimes it's even like, oh, wow, you're just covering that up. Oh, shoot, I wouldn't have had to have done this or done that. And we could have done it this way, which would have been a lot faster, because I was trying to make it look, somewhat
presentable, because
somewhat
it's
finished.
exposed.
Yep. So
I'm not cutting corners. It just
some of the beam work and some
exposed,
of the post work, where the posts and the beam are attaching.
Because they're structural.
Yep. So there's a lot of ways you can make them look good, just to make them, again, not look so industrial. And stuff like that. But a lot of times, again, we come on and cover those things up. And if we can just get them to see what we're doing, again, they can not do so much, and they can just have it a little bit more industrial looking, because again, a lot of that just gets covered up. So
for the electrical, you guys do the electrical and the speakers? Is that
we will
part
hook
of the
them
service?
up. We can hook them up and install them, but we have to have an electrician come out and do the wiring, out to the location. And same with the speakers. We have an audio guy that we work with typically, and he'll come out and run the wire for the speakers and stub everything out, and then we install it, because we have to work within that 16 inches of a panel typically for lights and speakers and fans and things.
And is that part of the pre-planning then with the electrician? Are you meeting with them and the deck builder saying, we've got every 16 inches, this is where we want the lights to be laid out, so that in the end it does look very well pre-planned?
Yeah, we try to. And usually what we'll have the electrician do is say, we're going to have approximately this many lights, approximately these locations. Can you leave us a 4-foot whip? So we can go right or left, front or back. If we need to, we can have some wiggle room. And then the panel can move a little bit too. Especially if, again, down the road, if they need to access that space for some reason, they can slide that panel down, so it's not just rigid and stuck.
Okay. So what's the coolest deck you've ever done?
No, there was
one here in Sioux Falls.
Yeah.
Actually.
No, that was.
It had 7 separate ceilings in it, just the way that it was built and along the house, and it was a brick house. It was very involved, but we did post wraps, beam wraps, stair lights, outdoor TV, and outdoor chandelier. That was a first for us. We did lights, speakers. I mean, it was. It was wonderfully crazy. I'll say.
Yeah,
that was the most involved one we've ever done.
Turned out really well.
But the most intricate as well, the most complex, lines with the gutters and stuff. So just a lot of gutter work.
Unique adapting.
It was like 94 gutters or 94 cuts on that ceiling. So it was a lot. But it looks phenomenal. Like it's stunning. Night and day difference. And it basically is an outdoor living room for them.
Yeah, so we had the speakers were all integrated with their home system. So that's again, we brought in the sound guy, and now it's connected to their TV, to their patio speakers, to their pool, their indoor, and they can control all that separately. And the TVs, Wi-Fi, and with having an outdoor space like that, with not necessarily completely out of the elements, but we're pretty covered for the most part. So like the outdoor TV didn't necessarily have to be a full-fledged outdoor TV.
Sure.
They're so cheap on the normal TVs versus the one that's rated to be out just on the elements, just with a cover on it. Usually you can get away with that. So just little things, adding outlets, doing, again, we've tried to make it like a living room outside type of a deal, and it really turned out. And again, a lot of challenges with an existing structure.
Sure.
We had some steel beams in that one to incorporate some of that and some of the
But you would never
flashing.
know any of that stuff's under there after it's all finished out and the deck ceiling's put on. Like it truly looks like a living room. It's just crazy.
Yeah, that one
blows my mind every
that one
time.
took a little longer than a week.
Yeah, that was
Really just
that
as
was a
a
5-week
longer
project.
Yeah. So that was, it was a fun and uninspected on how far it was going to go. That was kind of the fun surprise for us. The challenge.
Yeah, are there limits on how deep a deck can be?
Theoretically, no.
Yeah.
I think the longest we've done was a 30-foot deep with a single panel. We did the runs. In those situations, those are unique because we do actually have to attach some sort of mid support to the actual joist. So we either do
The panel can span that, but to get water to drain, you get any load on that, and then we're going to belly out, and then water's not going to be able to drain in the direction we want to keep it. And then most structures that are built that way, if it's that one, this one in particular she's mentioning, was a lot of steel was incorporated, and then the structure of the deck was in between the steel. We didn't have any drop beams below that, so we normally rather run into some sort of structure that we attach to, or it's integrated into the deck, and then we attach to those structure points. So there was, I think, 2 structure points within that 30-foot span that we're going up to and attaching, basically just a hanger, just to keep that straight line. So when we do get winter coming through and doing what it does best, we don't lose our slope, on that aspect of things. So that's kind of we can basically, as long as we can ship them, we can get the panel lengths, but that's kind of what we run into is just the deck structure usually dictates a lot of that panel length. But like a gentleman out of the Omaha area is designing an addition, and he wants it clear span everything. So that one's pushing the 30 feet, and he wants it completely from one end to the other, no seams or anything like that. So he was asking us, and we basically said, well, as long as you have some sort of structure midway through or something, and he definitely does on that one. So we'll attach to that, but definitely can get very unique. Our gutters have a little limit, but usually we have to have a downspout, and we can't. To get the slope and the downspout to work, we'll run out of room going further and further down on that 2x10. So but we can usually seam those pretty well together. That's 21 feet on those before we have to have a seam. So it's usually, again, not very often that we have a deck that you normally.
Pretty rare occurrence that we have decks that are that long and that big. And granted, in today's world, things are getting more complex designs and stuff. So I'm sure we'll see more of that. But the nice part about the ceiling is it's engineered steel, and it's designed to hold 6 inches thick of solid ice throughout the entire system.
Wow.
That's the weight it can take, which is another reason we love it, because we do get snow load and ice and freeze thaw here. So it's reassuring to know like what we put up is structurally sound. Like it's not going anywhere.
Right. It's not going to dry out and get brittle and break and
it's not going to fall, due to ice load, because it's designed to dry out and drain. So
and great abuse. 22 gauge steel is, it sounds like just a random number, but once you get in your hand, it can take.
We take hammers to it when we're
like those samples you gave me. Those are they're like
rigid.
3x3, and there's 5 or 6 of them in that little pouch, and they're
heavy.
really heavy.
At the home show, I usually hand somebody a sample because they can't quite I know I can tell they can't quite comprehend when I say 22 gauge steel, like it's heavy duty stuff, and they're like, oh my gosh, and they try to bend it and they can't bend it in that sample piece.
So when you have kids kicking soccer balls and being kids, that's another beauty thing of like having a space where you can be and not have to worry about like, don't touch that, like, or don't get close to that because you're going to dent it.
Very durable.
And even if you do damage a panel, we just separate that single panel. We can cut it out if it's not an access panel, and then put one right back in, and then put it back together.
Way you go.
And it's a pretty easy process. And that's we didn't want a product where if there was any issues, where it'd be this act of Congress to have to try to put it back together, and what's it going to cost, and what's it going to look like, and when can you do it, and you have time to do it. And that's kind of where it was like the serviceability for us to maintain and keep that warranty was the no-brainer for us. And that's kind of, again, back to that durability thing was huge.
So once you come out and measure a deck and the clients say, yep, go for it, what's the usual manufacturing time to delivery and then install?
Usually 8 to 12 weeks. And I know that sounds like a lot, but with any custom product, they're windows, doors, cabinets, all those things, they take time. And that's because they have to make it specifically for that deck, and then it has to get shipped to us. But on top of that, we usually try to help the client save on shipping. So we try to get at least 5 orders to a truck because it all comes freight from Atlanta. So we can always get it sooner if clients want that. That is an option, but typically 8 to 12 weeks, and then we just do them in the order that we received them, and they get installed in that order.
So usually, if we place an order Monday, we can have it ready shipped by Friday. So if someone wants to pay for shipping and wants it, a deadline or something that we have to get to.
Graduations.
Something that,
weddings.
Yep, even just on some remodels, we've had in the hills where a remodel, someone must have dropped the ball and kind of didn't realize they were doing it, and they used a different product, but they couldn't get that product in time. And then they knew us from meeting at the home show and gave us a call and said, how fast can you turn this around? And basically that was the deal, where it's like, well, if you take care of shipping, we can have this direct shipped. We can have it here in less than a week and get out there and install it. So that's kind of the kicker there, is it sounds like a long time, but it's just more that bulk ordering that we want to try to just make it feasible for everybody on the shipping process. And then it just gives a little bit of a schedule too on that side of things, but pretty fast if you want it. But usually that's kind of what we dictate our schedule around, is that time frame.
So now's a good time, the end of winter, very, very early spring, think about these things.
Absolutely.
So then during good weather in the spring and summer and fall, then that can get installed.
Yep. And we can work through the winter as long as it's above 0. Our sealants and everything we use for the gutters can go down to 0 degrees. It's just more of our comfort level.
Fingertip.
I prefer above 20 degrees. That's kind of my stopping point. But we've definitely worked in colder. So really, I mean, we've worked all through this winter so far. So and we'll already have 5 by the time we get to probably the end of March that we'll have installed. So,
and it's great to maybe get on that schedule and to think of that things, because then again, even we're going to start transitioning into, our high temps during the day are supposed to be almost in the mid 30s getting here soon. So we're going to start switching around, even though it doesn't feel like it. That's all of a sudden we can get into these spaces while you don't want to be in these spaces. Because a lot of times it's like,
you want to use it this summer.
Yeah, it's just like, let's wait until this, because sometimes we can't even do the site visit until spring because they just don't want to go back there. And it's like, well, you're going to want to use this by the time spring comes around. So let's have the conversation, or let's get you on the schedule at least some sort, because all of a sudden there's going to be people with graduation deadlines, people with party deadlines. We have block parties. We have, family gatherings that we want to try to push and hit, and 4th of July and stuff like that. So it's kind of one of those things where we can just at least get them not to shut down their mind when it comes to like outdoor planning in the wintertime. That's great for us. And again, we were working all the way through New Year's Eve this year on with, and now it's kind of trickled with, obviously, with the colder weather and stuff like that. But again, we have it all prepped already. So as soon as we hit that warm weather, we'll start doing installs, and then they can enjoy that
for the season it's meant to be.
As soon as it starts getting nice, they can be out there and using that space versus having to wait, get on the schedule, and go through the whole gamut of things, because that's the biggest challenge we see too, is people want stuff right. which is great. I totally get it. I'm the same way. But when it comes to custom products and stuff that takes time to put in, we have those delays. And the sooner we can get you thinking about the project, and especially when it's out of season, if we can get you thinking about it, in the fall, so we can do it in the winter and you can be using it by spring. So just trying to, again, getting people to know it's an option so that they can pre-plan with us a little bit.
Not that we want to focus on all of our installs in the winter,
No.
but we have a lot of where it just like completely shuts off communication, and then all of a sudden it's like spring, and then everybody
And then
wants,
you're jammed and you're booked out, and
and then it's not
they
very
don't get to
appealing when
enjoy
we're
it.
when
And
we're
nobody wants to hear that you're 6 months out before, you can get it and get a ceiling. So
you
we're
can
trying
enjoy it next summer.
Yeah, we're trying to prevent the bottleneck effect, where if you can keep people thinking about their outdoor spaces, now, then we can get you that outdoor space done and finished so you can start using it as soon as it's nice.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned Omaha. So what is your territory that you can install projects in?
We're focusing Sioux Falls, Black Hills, just primarily just because the Black Hills definitely has a vacation outdoor, maybe a little bit more focused on that side of things.
They do outdoor living a little better than we do, but they have the climate for it.
Yeah.
But they also
they have the vacationers. They have a lot of
those spaces.
A lot of people going and wanting to be outdoors, in the vacation rentals and the homes out there. So we're primarily focused on those two areas, but we do have basically Nebraska, Iowa, and Minnesota, and we kind of just encompass
South Dakota, all of them.
Encompass a little bit on some of those larger markets. Like we just needed to be Okoboji, so then it was kind of Iowa type of a deal, and Lincoln, Omaha. We took those areas, and then we haven't really advertised or pushed into Minnesota per se, but that's definitely, we have up into the cities area.
We're doing, I think, one in Rochester in the spring. Okay. So we can be all over. That's travel for us. It's fun and not a big deal. So
yeah. Okay, is there anything else we haven't covered that we should chat about?
I don't think we talked about it. It does have a lifetime warranty, which was another big draw for us, because most warranties on products are like 10 pages long and have so many like caveats, like, if you didn't install this screw right, you void the whole warranty. So this is like a 1-page warranty, and it's black and white. And
does it transfer to new owners then?
It can. We have to do an inspection, and then it's at our discretion if we want to transfer the warranty. But typically, it's for the homeowner that purchased it and installed it. But that is negotiable, just as long as they're not putting holes in it or doing anything crazy. So as long as we can inspect it and we can pass it on to that next homeowner.
Nice.
Yeah, and then just mainly on it, just our really passion to it. Again, on some other avenues is just like the education the homeowner should really try to look into. Getting that information, finding out some, again, warranties was a big thing with us, because a lot of taillight warranties. You're spending all this money. Again, these spaces are not cheap. The deck's not cheap. Handrail, all these things that you're putting into that. You really want to look at the structure itself. Again, we're really passionate on taking all these mega warranted products and putting it on maybe a structure that's just normal green treated lumber, and there's no warranty, there's no kind of a poor history on how long that stuff's, and there's a lot of products coming out there that are getting better, that have 25-year warranties that aren't, again, 5 pages long. It's pretty well backed by the builder and the product. And then there's steel, there's a lot of composites, and we're on the framework of things. So just in that outdoor world of just like, again, looking at the bigger picture, getting a designer involved. Because again, a lot of times you'll see maybe, again, nothing that I would point out, but maybe all of a sudden we wanted this grill and all this outdoor kitchen, but we put it 15 feet away from the backyard because the landscaper incorporated it that way. But how does that function? So all of a sudden we have a space of like, it just seems like a backyard and you just throw it together. But again, we really like the designers that are really involved with the functionality
and not just aesthetics.
That's where
it's got to function first.
Yeah. And that's kind of where you'll scroll through stuff, homes for sale, and you'll see some of these backyards. And again, like I said, some of these areas are just so far away from the house. I'm like, who's going to run out there with their stake?
Right.
And then stand there and wait, and want to, run back and forth, or it's stand in the heat, on a 90 degree, 70% humidity day. It's just like some of those things, like the practicality of, but that wasn't cheap. to put there. So let's maybe put it so we can maximize the use, maximize the space, make it just something where you just use more than you ever thought, and that's our goal is, a lot of these spaces we get blamed for how much they end up putting into the space in a good way because they all of a sudden realize they can use this space more and more.
The snowball effect of, well, then I had to get new patio furniture, and then I had to get a new grill.
And then we had to put a fridge out. Yeah, then we put a fridge, and then a
and then we put a
countertop.
pool in.
Yeah.
And then we've tiled over the concrete, and because now it's, we've had some people do that in the hills, and it's just all of a sudden it's just, they're just kind of the running joke of like, we forgot to tell them that they're going to be using it.
Fine print, that is, you're going to end up wanting to do more in the space. And
and so it's been fun that way, but just that education of just really putting it together, because again, it's a lot of money. It needs a good thought to make sure that it's done in a way that it just becomes part of the house.
Well, and protecting your investments too. Like you said, everything's getting more expensive. Patio furniture, rugs, grills, outdoor TVs, all these things. So why not protect those, with a ceiling and maximize that space? Even the patio itself, like pavers, all that landscaping, keeping the water away from your foundation. I mean, there's endless reasons to do that to a space. So we just try to, even if people don't choose us, because we totally get people have budgets and they have different wants and needs, and that's totally fine. But just so that they're thinking of those things and the longevity of that space. Like, okay, if you go this route, how is that going to be in 5 or 10 years? Are you going to want to buy another system or purchase more patio furniture or replace your concrete? Like, those are just all things we try to get people to think about long term.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so where can people find you guys at?
Undercoverheartland.com is our website, and we will also be at the home show February 21st through the 23rd at the Sioux Empire Convention Center in the arena, and we'll be in the arena as part of the feature booth.
Yeah, that's very exciting.
Yeah, you can't miss us. We'll be under the big deck, the full-size deck.
And the deck covering is going to be the walnut.
Yep.
Yes.
So people can come out and see how beautiful that is.
They'll be able to see our 3D printed wood tone, which is excellent. Last year we did bronze, and it was very stunning, but I'm really excited to debut this because most people haven't seen it. So,
it's going to be really great.
You can show people pictures, but until you see the product in person, it's night and day difference.
When we put up our first one, it was, kind of that very nervous because it looks great on the pictures and this and that, but when you see it
how's
first,
it really?
That's because we've been selling this wood 3D printed, panel for so long. When it first came out, kind of telling everybody that it looks great and this and that, and the first one went up, and you have nothing to compare it to, and it was like, okay, well, that one's up. Put up the next one and the next one, and then all of a sudden, when you're about done, it is amazing on how well it looks like it's real slats of individual boards. That's really what threw me a little bit. It was like, what's it going to look like? Is it going to look like there's tongue and groove or anything like that? But it was pretty surprising. I mean, it really surprised us.
Low deck too.
Yep.
Like you're really close to it.
So you can really see it.
Yeah.
And that was and with the 3D printed and then even the solid colors, you can change the gutter color. So the gutters on the 3D printed aren't the 3D printed just because how they will line up with the corners, and then how when they roll and make the gutter, it doesn't line up.
The wood look doesn't look.
It just it looks a little messy. They were gonna try to incorporate that, but it just didn't. It always looked like they were two different, which I thought, well, sometimes that's okay, type of a deal. But solid, basically the solid colors, we incorporate that with the wood grains, and then our solid panel colors you can mix match on the gutters, which we've done.
Yeah, we don't do two tones very often, but they still look stunning.
Great. I was going to say we did a beadboard tan with the bronze gutter. That one looked really good.
Yeah, that was out in the hills. So
surprisingly, but again, it's one of those things where so we'll have a walnut ceiling with the black gutters.
That with tan, we'll have that one soon. Lots out.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So come out to the home show, right?
Come see us at the home show. Come see it for yourself, and we'll have all the color samples there. And we're happy to answer any questions, show you any pictures from past jobs, and just talk about it.
All the questions.
Ask all the questions.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Well, thanks for joining us for the podcast. This was really great.
Yeah, we're happy to be here.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning into a Well-Designed Home podcast. We hope today's episode inspired you to take the next steps towards creating the home of your dreams.
Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. New episodes are uploaded every Friday afternoon for your listening delight. We'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review to help more listeners discover the show. And while you're at it, sign up for our newsletter at timelessdesignsbymelissa.com to have every episode and other design-related items delivered directly to your inbox. Looking for more resources? Download our complimentary guide, How to Hire the Right Interior Designer, on our website to ensure your next project is a success. Stay connected with us on social media. Follow Timeless Designs by Melissa on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube for behind-the-scenes content, design tips, and so much more. If you're ready to start your own design journey or have questions, reach out to us at concierge@timelessdesignsbymelissa.com. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for joining us on a Well-Designed Home podcast. Until next time, here's to making every space a timeless reflection of you.